Family members were decorating a church in Utah for a wedding scheduled the following day when smoke suddenly began filling the building. Guests grabbed water and fire extinguishers while trying to save the church. Investigators later accused the bride of starting the fire herself after allegedly stealing cigarette lighters earlier that day. Authorities estimated more than $100,000 in damage. She was arrested before the wedding ever happened. Some brides worry the venue won't be exactly how they imagined. She decided nobody was going to use it. A Minnesota bride and groom gathered 20 members of their wedding party on a wooden dock for photographs before the ceremony. Everyone got arranged into position. Then the weather-beaten dock collapsed beneath their combined weight and dropped the entire group into the lake. Guests scrambled through the water while helping the bride, whose heavy dress made climbing out considerably harder. Despite soaked clothing and ruined preparation, the ceremony began only 10 minutes late. Apparently everyone packed a spare personality. A wedding reception at the Royal Palace in Fremont, California was packed with nearly 900 guests when a fight suddenly broke out on the dance floor. Instead of ending there, the argument spread through the crowd as more people jumped in. The violence spilled outside where the parking lot became the next battleground. Police estimated as many as 70 people were involved as a cell phone video captured guests throwing punches in every direction. Two men suffered serious injuries, including one who was beaten unconscious and left in critical condition. Officers eventually restored order and arrested two people while searching for additional suspects. It started with one fight on the dance floor. Somehow 70 people decided it was their argument too. More than 150 people gathered beneath a large tent for a wedding near Cape Ron, Oklahoma. Before the ceremony could begin, severe weather reached the property and began tearing through the reception setup. The tent collapsed onto the crowd, trapping guests beneath metal supports and fabric as others rushed to pull them free. Around 30 people were transported to hospitals, although authorities reported no life-threatening injuries. The wedding was postponed while emergency crews cleared the wreckage. The couple prepared for every possible problem. Then Oklahoma weather removed the entire building. A California couple had just shared their first kiss as husband and wife and started walking back down the aisle. Guests suddenly began running toward the bride. Her veil and wedding dress had caught fire from nearby candles, sending flames climbing up the back of her gown. Friends rushed in and smothered the fire before she suffered serious injuries. Video captured the entire moment as the ceremony instantly turned into an emergency. Most wedding dresses are remembered for the photos. This one nearly made the evening news for a very different reason. A newly married couple climbed aboard a trolley with their wedding party and headed toward the reception in Connecticut. Partway through the trip, smoke began pouring from the engine compartment. The driver stopped as flames sped through the vehicle. Everyone escaped before firefighters arrived and extinguished the fire. With their transportation destroyed, the local fire department gave the bride and groom a ride to the reception instead. Most couples arrived in a limousine. These two finished the trip in a fire truck. An Illinois couple had just finished saying their vows when firefighters rushed to a massive explosion several miles away. The home that exploded belonged to the newlyweds. Investigators say one of the wedding guests quietly left the ceremony, drove to the house, carried containers of flammable liquid inside, and ignited the explosion. The blast destroyed the home and killed the suspect. The bride and groom arrived still wearing their wedding clothes and found everything they owned reduced to rubble. It's usually a bad sign when someone leaves before the cake. It's an even worse sign when your house explodes a few minutes later. A Michigan wedding ended with friends gathering for an after-party at home in Flint. Prosecutors said an argument broke out between the groom and one of his groomsmen. The confrontation moved outside where investigators say the groom climbed into an SUV and deliberately struck the groomsman before driving away. The victim later died from his injuries. The bride was also charged after authorities accused her of helping cover up what happened. Most after parties end because everyone gets tired. This one ended with a homicide investigation. A Rhode Island wedding party was celebrating in Newport when one member was denied entry to a restaurant. Several relatives followed police outside and began arguing with officers about the decision. Body camera footage showed the confrontation become physical as people shoved, punched, and kicked during the struggle. One officer was knocked to the ground, another was struck in the face, and 6 members of the wedding party were arrested. What began with one person being refused entry became a street fight involving a family and police. Nobody got into the restaurant. Several of them did secure accommodations elsewhere. A father had just begun his wedding toast on Mackinac Island, Michigan. Then guests noticed smoke pouring through the reception tent. A neighboring historic home was fully engulfed in flames. More than 100 wedding guests were evacuated as firefighters battled the blaze and worked to keep it spreading to the reception venue. Local businesses joined together, moved all 120 meals, found a new venue, and restarted the reception about an hour later. Most fathers hope their toast is unforgettable. This one was interrupted by a house fire. About 50 relatives and friends gathered behind the St. Louis home for the wedding of Manuel and Dulce Gonzalez. Shortly before 1 in the morning, two masked gunmen entered the reception and began demanding money from guests. One robber searched people's pockets while the other stood behind the groom with a gun pointed at him. A shot was fired, striking Manuel in the head and leaving him critically injured. Both attackers escaped without stealing anything. They invaded a wedding, terrorized 50 people, and nearly killed the groom, then somehow failed at the robbery. A Georgia couple left their wedding celebration aboard a helicopter intended to provide a dramatic departure. Rain had reduced visibility, but the aircraft took off toward an Atlanta airport. The helicopter crashed inside a massive wooded property, killing the groom and pilot. The bride survived and remained trapped in the wreckage for approximately 6 hours before rescuers located her the next morning. She had awakened beside her husband and realized he was dead. Newlywed Samantha Miller and Eric Hutchinson left their South Carolina reception in a golf cart beneath a canopy of sparklers. Minutes later, prosecutors said an intoxicated driver traveling 65 miles per hour in a 25-mile zone struck them from behind. The impact threw the cart approximately 100 yards and caused it to roll several times. Samantha died while still wearing her wedding dress. Her husband and two relatives suffered serious injuries. The reception photographs captured everyone celebrating their departure. The next photographs documented the wreckage waiting down the road. Karen and Jonathan Narcisse exchanged their vows thousands of feet above California inside a hot air balloon carrying 11 relatives and friends. The pilot attempted several landings but kept missing every safe location. The balloon eventually struck a fence, scraped through trees, and crashed sideways into a stranger's backyard while someone recorded everything. Nobody suffered serious injuries, although the groom later admitted he was terrified of heights before the flight even began. The invitation never mentioned a backyard. The balloon apparently had other plans. A Utah couple arrived at the Bonneville Salt Flats and discovered their carefully arranged wedding site sitting between several inches of water. Heavy rain had flooded the desert overnight, leaving waves moving around the chairs. The couple refused to relocate. Guests walked through the water, sat with their feet submerged, and watched the ceremony while the bride's dress strayed through the flood. The location is famous for being dry, flat, and empty. On their wedding day, they managed to fail two of those three requirements. A wedding party gathered beneath a tree at Penn Park in Whittier, California for photographs after the ceremony. Without warning, the 100-foot tree uprooted and crashed directly onto the group. Branches trapped several people while firefighters used chainsaw and ladders to reach them. 5 guests were injured, including a 4-year-old girl who suffered serious head trauma. The bride's mother was killed at the scene. The family had assembled to preserve one happy moment. Instead, the photograph became the final and ordinary second before the entire wedding changed. An Ohio bride that completed the ceremony was taking outdoor photographs when she suddenly began sneezing uncontrollably. Her face started swelling, hives spread across her body, and her throat began tightening. She later said doctors couldn't determine the exact cause. The newlyweds abandoned their reception and rushed to urgent care, where she received emergency treatment while guests remained at the venue. Roughly 90 minutes later, the swelling had eased enough for the couple to return and continue celebrating. The bride spent months preparing for every visible detail, her immune system waited until the photographs to submit its objections. A Pennsylvania bride was 30 minutes from walking down the aisle when she collapsed and began convulsing inside the wedding venue. She had a seizure. Her sister, who had emergency medical training, rushed to help while paramedics were called. The bride was transported to a nearby hospital with a large bruise on her forehead, leaving 82 guests waiting without knowing whether the wedding would happen. Hospital employees decorated her treatment room and the couple held the ceremony there instead. They reserved an elegant venue for the wedding. The emergency made the final seating decision. A wedding ceremony was beginning outside the St. Regis Hotel in Atlanta when a powerful storm moved across the property. Wind struck the large tent above the guests and began lifting the structure from its supports. Video showed chairs overturning, decorations scattering, and people running as the tent collapsed across the ceremony space. The bride and groom had not even reached the vows before the entire set disappeared around them. The venue promised an outdoor ceremony. The weather removed everything except the outdoors.